Narrative as argument. So this is what we'll be working on third quarter is we'll be working on how to write narratives that make a point or support your arguments. So hopefully you read through this, but basically first we're going to focus a lot on writing narratives with a purpose. And like this mentions, you can use your annotated bibliography for it, or you can use the text and these prompts that I provide. And because everything we read this quarter will be focused on the American dream, so you can talk about the American dream for that. Part 2, you're just going to write a brief argumentative essay with some research that backs up what you have in your narrative, and then you'll do a reflection on how well you've used the writing skills we've learned this quarter in making a good narrative. So let's look at this. Real world example. This is by Malcolm Gladwell in a book called The Outliers, which is this book. It's a pretty good book. Anyway, in this chapter, he does have it divided up into sections, just kind of help him organize his book. But you'll see this section 1 is a narrative of hockey players. And then section 2 is he explains what he's trying to accomplish with that narrative. And then section 3, he breaks it down with evidence, and then he includes more narratives. So just what I like about Malcolm Gladwell is he's very good about making his point with evidence, but also with stories. So his writing is very engaging. So you'll definitely want to read through this. It's also just really interesting. I really like it. And you'll have all sorts of fun facts to tell your friends about why they may or may not be good at sports. Anyway, so that's an example of how narrative is used. And just as a side note, his argument that he's making, you can actually find it. He says right here, I will argue that there is something profoundly wrong with the way we make sense of success. And then he goes on to explain it. Then he says, in Outliers, I want to convince you that these kinds of personal explanations of success don't work. People don't rise from nothing. That's kind of his point that he's trying to make with the narrative. And then down here, he actually goes into the specific point he's making about hockey. So he has another story about the person who discovered what the problem with Canadian hockey was and why certain people were being successful. And then down here, he finally makes his point. The explanation for this is quite simple. It has nothing to do with astrology, nor is there anything magical about the first 3 months of the year. It's simply that in Canada, the eligibility cutoff for age class hockey is January 1st. So his argument through all these narratives and stuff is that the closer you're born to January 1st, after January 1st, the older you are in your age class, and then which as a child is a big deal with like growth and puberty and stuff. So therefore, you're better than people who are born after you. So it's kind of cool. Definitely read that, look at how it's done, but that's an example. Very long example. You're going to do this, but on a much more condensed scale. But that's an example of what we're going to accomplish this quarter. So exciting.